So this argument disproves Islam and Christianity with certainty. It's not the omniscience paradox. I've cracked it. The omniscience paradox, it's the omniscience disproof. As you might be able to tell, this is unscripted. So it's 1, God knows he creates X. 2, God can't not create X. 3, therefore a God with foreknowledge and free will is impossible. So, in conclusion, there can't be a God with foreknowledge or predestination or quidda, God's plan that he knows he does, and free will. That's impossible because it's a logical contradiction to say he knows he creates time and never creates time. He knows he creates X and never creates X. A logical contradiction is when you have two opposite things, you put them together and they create an impossibility. It's when both can't be true. So a married bachelor, Adam is married to Eve and Adam isn't married to Eve, is not married to Eve. Adam is married to Eve and Adam has never been married to Eve. It's impossible. Even if there's a God, and I'm wrong, then God can't create a married bachelor. He can't do impossible things. He can't do literally anything. He can only do anything which is possible, anything which is possible for him to do. So if God had foreknowledge and free will, he'd be able to know he creates time and be able to create time or never create time. This God can't never create time. It's impossible because it's a logical contradiction, once again, to say that he knows he creates time and he never creates time. He does not create time. So what's some of the counters to this argument, all of which fail? One is that God is outside of time. But it doesn't matter. A logical contradiction is impossible outside of time. Logical contradictions are impossible in all possible worlds. Another counter is that there's nothing outside of God forcing him to choose. There's nothing outside of God forcing him to choose, as William Lane Craig says, but God's own attribute of foreknowledge is forcing him to choose. So this argument fails. What about Joshua Rasmussen's what God knows he chose? He's replied to me saying this. God can't know and choose. If he could know and choose, he would know that he creates time and be able to create time or never create time. This God can't never create time. He can't choose, that's the point. Free will means you freely choose between choices without being forced, and foreknowledge means God knows what he does for certain without past, present and future, but he still knows what he does for certain. Unless you say one of the attributes of God is time, then you can say before God knows what he does before he does it. If you're not saying that, if you're saying that God created time and it is not an attribute of God, then I'm just saying God knows for certain what he does without before. So I'm not saying God knows what he does before he does it. It's very important to note that, actually. Another argument is that I don't know enough about foreknowledge and free will. I don't have godly foreknowledge and free will, so how do I know that foreknowledge and free will are an impossible combination? Well, I know the definitions of foreknowledge and free will as I've just demonstrated, so I can see that they're a logical contradiction. I know enough about them, even though I don't have them, to be able to make the conclusion, to be able to draw the conclusion with certainty that God with foreknowledge and free will is impossible, right? So remember, God can't not do what he knows he does. So if he knows he creates time, he can't not create time. If he knows he creates Adam, he can't not create Adam. Yeah? So by deduction, as he can't not do it, he must do it. He's forced to do what he knows. It's set in stone, in other words. It clearly is. Because saying foreknowledge, God knows what he does, and free will, God can choose to do what he knows or to do not what he knows, is impossible. It's a logical contradiction. So Allah and Yahweh, as defined, as far as I'm aware, by most people is impossible. So I know that this version of God is impossible, but as far as I'm aware, most people, most Muslims and Christians say this version of God is possible or for certain. They know it exists for certain, they claim, yet it's impossible. You might say, well, Muslims and Christians don't define foreknowledge and free will that way. Well, if you're defining foreknowledge as God thinks he probably does something, then that beats my argument, but that's not how it's usually defined as far as I'm aware. Usually it means God certainly knows what he does without before. So he doesn't know what he does before he does it, but he certainly knows what he does. And free will, if you're saying that's not how free will is defined, that God can freely choose between choices, the only option then means you're defining free will as God is forced to choose, right? So he still chooses, but he's forced to choose, right? Which means there isn't free will. That's literally the opposite of free will. That's the opposite of how you're defining free will, the opposite of how free will is usually defined as non-free will. You're just swapping around the definitions. Yeah. So if you're not defining free will that way, God can freely choose between choices that he's not forced, right? There's something that's not free will.